Welcome, candidates. Thank you for being here. For at least the last century, Pennsylvania has been losing population. Businesses and families are choosing to live and locate in other states. What is causing this outward migration, and how do we stop it?
Commissioner Gale.
There's two reasons why people are leaving Pennsylvania. One, we have a terrible governor, Tom Wolf, and we also have lousy Republicans in our state Senate and state House that hold the majority there. And the last thing we need to do to reverse that trend and bring people back to Pennsylvania and keep them here is elect another radical liberal, and that's what we'll have out of Josh Shapiro, who will be the Democrat nominee for governor. And I'm the only Republican candidate that has the ability to defeat Josh Shapiro in the general election in November, because we come from the same home county. We were both Montgomery County commissioners together. That's where I developed a lot of name recognition, personal relationships, right in his home turf. I can beat Shapiro. And I'll be a different type of governor, because when I get to Harrisburg, I will hold accountable the Republicans in the legislature that let us down time and time again. And I would use my governorship as a bully pulpit to do just that. Because the reality is the Republicans will maintain the majority in the state legislature. We know that because of gerrymandering, the way the district maps are drawn. And I'm going to go to Harrisburg to shake things up. And we can lower taxes, we can reduce regulations, but I have to be the Republican nominee to make it happen.
For my question, Governor Wolf took a top-down, Harrisburg-centric approach to managing the COVID-19 pandemic. Attorney General Josh Shapiro repeatedly defended these policies in court. How would you have governed differently?
Commissioner?
We all remember when Governor Wolf and Richard Levine, the health secretary, made the announcement 2 weeks to flatten the curve. Well, here we are approaching 2 years. Their response to the COVID-19 pandemic did not work. It's that simple. And I said from the very beginning in my capacity as a county commissioner, the cure for the disease cannot be worse than the disease itself. And this totalitarian nanny-state dictator-style government crippled our economy. Even our children were penalized by the response. And that's the least vulnerable population to this virus. We should protect our senior citizens. The state government botched that. So enough of the mask wearing, enough of the mandated vaccinations and booster shots. We should have the freedom to decide what we do with our own bodies. And I believe the citizens of Pennsylvania have more common sense than the politicians in Harrisburg. And I'm going to put people before politics to make those right decisions when I become your next governor.
Pennsylvania is the #2 producer of gas and electricity in the nation and the largest exporter of power in the country. But Washington has shut down the Keystone XL pipeline. Gas and utility prices are rising, and regulators have warned about possible blackouts and having to import foreign energy. As governor, how will you balance protecting the environment and the interests of energy, jobs, and consumers?
Commissioner Gale.
God bless the Keystone State with an abundance of natural resources right under our feet. And it's literally untapped potential, and we should fully utilize that industry. It'll help drive down utility costs, it will create jobs, and the revenue generated from the fracking industry, for example, should remain in the territories, the regions of the state that have Marcellus Shale and the fracking. It shouldn't go to Pittsburgh, it shouldn't go to Philadelphia, it should remain in those regions. And we're talking about the price of energy. Pennsylvania has the third highest gasoline tax in the entire nation, right behind California and Illinois. That's nothing to brag about. And that gas tax was given to us with a Republican governor and a Republican majority in the state Senate and the state House, the infamous Corbett gas tax. And that revenue collected was supposed to go towards fixing our roads. And I travel all across the roads in Pennsylvania meeting with the people. And we must have the worst roads in the entire country. So something's seriously wrong there. We don't have a revenue problem, we have a cost problem. And as your next governor, I'll fix the roads and I'll do it at a lower cost.
After more than a decade of stalemate in Harrisburg on virtually every major policy issue, how would you build a coalition that is not only able to win the election, but also govern and implement your agenda?
Commissioner?
My platform for governor is the same platform that any Republican seeking the governorship should be running on. And that's to deliver the agenda that former Governor Tom Corbett failed to deliver, the conservative agenda for Pennsylvania. And I know liberals will resist that agenda. They're not going to support me when I push for prevailing wage reform, pension reform for state employees, school choice, property tax reform, voter ID, election reform. They'll resist it. But when the Republicans that hold the majority in our state legislature resist it, I'm going to call them out publicly by name. And I will also support primary challenges against the Republicans in the state legislature when they worry too much about catering to public sector unions, campaign donors, party bosses, and establishment insiders instead of pushing that conservative agenda forward. I will not be another Arlen Specter. I will not be another Pat Toomey. I will not be another Tom Ridge, and I will not be another Tom Corbett. I bring a future of conservatism to Pennsylvania that we desperately need. I will be a pit bull in Harrisburg and hold the Republicans accountable to get the job done.
There are currently more jobs available than people looking for work in the Commonwealth. Eligible workers are dropping out of the labor force in record numbers. How would your administration address these problems in our economy?
Commissioner.
A key component to job growth is public safety. Right now, particularly in our major cities such as Philadelphia, there's been total lawlessness for the last couple of years, where criminals run around the streets, record high murder rates. In June of 2020, the city burned. Center City, Philadelphia, the business district, looked like a third world country war zone with all the riots and looting, and they were getting away with that. And I was the only elected official in Pennsylvania to stand up and publicly denounce that type of criminal behavior. And I took a lot of heat for it. And I also had the courage to speak the truth about Black Lives Matter and what they did to our cities. And I took a lot of heat. I had protesters 4 times in front of my home. They called for my resignation, and I wouldn't back down. And as your next governor, I won't back down. I'll support the blue. I'll support law enforcement, give them the resources they need to protect our communities so law-abiding citizens feel safe to work. They feel safe to create a new business in Philadelphia and everywhere across the state. So public safety and law and order is a key component to job growth, and I will make sure that happens as your next governor.
Thank you all. That concludes our questioning, and we're now going to proceed to the candidate's 1-minute closing statement, which we hope you will include your top priorities in your agenda. We are beginning at podium, number 9, Commissioner Gale.
The number one issue facing our state is election integrity. People have lost faith and confidence in our election here in Pennsylvania, and that's due to Act 77, the unconstitutional legislation that gave Pennsylvania 50 days of no excuse mail-in voting, the longest vote-by-mail period of time in the entire nation. And this law was passed before the coronavirus. It had nothing to do with the pandemic. It was a political stunt done in Harrisburg. And every single Republican state senator voted for it. And in my opinion, anyone that voted for the devastating Act 77 legislation should be disqualified from holding any office, let alone being promoted to a higher office. And number one, on day one as your next governor, I will restore faith in our election system by doing away with mail-in voting, pushing for voter ID, restoring traditional absentee ballots, so you all can have faith in our election process in Pennsylvania, which is totally left. Because frankly, we all know that the guy that never left the basement, there's no way he received more votes than any candidate in the history of the country. So we have to fix it, and I'll get it done.